Okay.
George, smile.
Facilitator's alive. Orientation is, can you see that?
On the inside.
Rotate your device.
You sit next to Rick.
And then do that. It doesn't want to work that way.
Yep.
Oh, I gotta change the. Yes, sir.
It does. It's not gonna go live.
It's live now.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Okay. You're gonna hold. Check the screen.
Okay, make sure not to press
What?
this button when
Okay,
you're putting the.
Exactly. You think it's good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it going live?
Yep.
I got it. My voice travels.
This one is not on yet.
Okay. Camera's on. Just check it. Is it wide enough?
The battery just went down.
Alright, well, can we get started?
Yep. Cam's good. We're getting close.
No worries.
No, not yet. And I'll need your password for the live stream. Oh, you're live right now? Okay. I didn't know if you got that up yet.
Yes, it's there.
Oh, he has a privacy protector. Okay, what can I say? All right, I think we're good to go.
Okay, do you want me to start the other camera?
Yeah.
Which is the camera that we have to start the 30
This one.
minutes. Copy. Okay.
Yep, we're good to go. All right, rolling on this. You rolling on your cam, Michelle?
Is this one good? Yeah, we're good.
Confessions are coming out.
Yeah, exactly. You're like 10 years old.
Nobody's watching.
Last one was supposed to be like an hour and a half. That was, so whatever, however she goes.
Rolling?
Great. That's right. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Michael Palmieri. I'm the chair of the Olympia University. Thank you guys for coming out here. This is our last event for the year, for the weekend. Excuse me. And it's been a great weekend. If you got to see some of the rest of our seminars and our other roundtables and stuff, it's been a great weekend. Good news is we've been asked to come back next year for the Olympia in Las Vegas. I believe it's October 13th and 14th. It's going to be at the Las Vegas Convention Center. We've been asked to run Olympia University once again. Very excited about that. So if you guys can, follow Mr. Olympia University. That's our tag on our social media. You can also follow our company, Dominate Your Game. Please go to our social media, follow us, and get your updates as needed. And we start posting all of our stuff as things go on. And we do some other events besides the Olympia, some other expos and stuff like that. We do education workshops for. Our goal with this Olympia University is to get the information that people need out there. There's a lot of stuff that tends to get trampled on and pushed aside because it may not be the next hip, new, hot thing. People instead get their information from some gurus that are on the internet. We have the experts. This is one of the greatest panels you could ever hope to have in one place talking about the topic that we're going to have. Our topic today is hormone optimization, and Mike is going to be moderating it. We're going to be talking about your TRT, HRT, everything like that in between. So they all have different experiences. The level of experience, the level of education, and the level of know-how on applying not just knowledge but practicality, practically applying something is astounding with this group. All different areas of the same industry. So you guys have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. Like I said, Mike's going to moderate it. This is interactive. They'll talk. If you have questions, this is your opportunity to ask any of them one-on-one questions about what you're thinking about. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Just want to welcome everyone who are here present and also those who are watching live on YouTube. Because if you've ever wondered what it would be like to have the top TRT experts in the world all assembled in one place, then this is a video for you to watch. So you don't want to miss anything. And we're going to start by introducing everyone. I'll start with myself. I'm Mike from Balance My Hormones. I'm the founder of Balance My Hormones and a hormones pharmacy in the UK. And we're here to help men and women optimize their hormones, as many of our other practitioners are as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. George.
Yeah, hello. So this is my second Olympia University. I'm certified by the orthopedist MD. My background is from bodybuilding. I used to compete as a national athlete. So I'm now practicing medicine, acne medicine, about the hormone therapy use, and also therapy in men. I have been medical associate of our magazine, and I've been 5 years in English. And of course, presenting several YouTube channels. So I'll thank Mike for his invitation. That's all.
Okay. So, like Dr. T, I am a more competitive bodybuilder. My name is Rick Collins. I'm now an attorney. I've been practicing law in the area of dietary supplements, performance-enhancing drugs for the last 25 years. My entire practice is kind of where hardcore health and fitness intersect with criminal or regulatory problems. So if somebody's arrested for anabolic steroids, if it's a TRT clinic that's having some problems, those are all things that I get involved with. I actually co-authored a fitness book probably 15 years ago that was prompted by the idea that we, as a society, our testosterone levels are dropping generationally. And there have been studies that have shown that testosterone levels of our grandpas were higher than our papas, and their levels are higher than ours. So we see this gradual decline in testosterone, and so that's why panels like this are so important. Doctors, but what I have heard and seen is that there's this gradual diminishing of the range that is acceptable for what is considered, I guess, normal. So when we look at, I guess when physicians look at a patient's testosterone level, total testosterone level, and it's between, let's say, 270 and now something like 780, I think is considered the peak on some tests. So that range is based on what's currently normal, as I understand it. So that if, let's say, 50 years ago, the range was 500 to 1500, that would have been normal then. The fact that it's lower now doesn't mean it's optimal. Doesn't, in fact, it could mean it's sick. It could be that that range is actually problematic. And I'd like the doctors to talk a little bit about, first, what that means in terms of patient care, but also why are we lowering? Why are we not recognizing that just the diminishing levels doesn't mean that that's okay? It could, in fact, mean that there's, whether it's environmental issues, endocrine disruptors, we could go on a list, but, and what should we do about that? What should physicians do about that?
Yeah, it's a fact that the testosterone has declined. So this generation has lower testosterone than the fathers, and the fathers than the grandfathers. I believe environmental things like estrogens, also stress and sedentary lifestyle, insomnia, use of narcotics, alcohol, lack of physical activity, all this contribute to low testosterone. And men that are lousy and pathetic come to my office and they beg for a resurrection. And the levels are low. I mean, they are 299 and they are considered hypogonadic, but in 301 they are considered eugonadic, which is something not cool because we are more than numbers on a piece of paper. The number one evaluation should be considered by the clinical examination, the symptoms, they feel fatigue, the lack of sex esteem, sex drive, the erectile dysfunction, the obesity, the insulin resistance, and all this has to be considered are the parameters, and then check out a blood work. So men may feel bad below 400, the symptoms start below 400, and a bad lifestyle, quality of life comes below 350, I believe. So we need to see out of the box and consider the patient.
But bone, estrogen gets all the credit for bone. Testosterone is actually absolutely critical to women for bone, as are muscles critical to bone. So if you don't have muscles, muscles actually create, yesterday Eric gave a great talk on myokines. Muscles actually produce a myokine that's imperative for bone health. So women have to have testosterone. As to what is a normal value, I will push to say that, some people feel great with a very low testosterone. I do not. So I treat what my patients are telling me, and that may be even pushing them above the higher end of the range, right? Where it's not just at the higher end of the range, it may be quite a bit above that if every other factor looks good, and that's where they feel good. So I'm going to communicate. Some people, you can find a sweet spot. You overshoot it, people feel bad. You undershoot it, people feel bad. There's a sweet spot. It takes some experimentation to get there. So you really have got to, in fact, I always never look at the numbers until I make a mental guess in my mind what I think it's going to show. And when I'm shocked because it shows on the high end and the patient's still complaining about low symptoms, maybe there's another reason, maybe there's something else off, or maybe they do still need a little bit more, or we need to look at how they're being metabolized. We actually, in our clinic, follow all of the metabolites. Remember, it's not just, testosterone cannot just go into estradiol, which gets measured on blood tests, but you can actually measure things like 4-hydroxyestrone, which is a urine testosterone that actually has very estrogenic properties and is a very bad estrogen for prostate health or breast health in women. So we actually follow metabolites of these hormones so we can really definitely optimize exactly where that point is. So it's not actually just looking sometimes at blood tests. If somebody's not doing the way you think they should, we look a little deeper and we look at how their body is metabolizing those hormones. If a lot of that testosterone is going into 4-hydroxyestrone, and it's one of my problems with DHEA with men is a lot of it does go into 4-hydroxyestrone. That's a free radical, it damages your DNA and it leads to cancer. So you have to know a whole lot of nuances. When somebody's not doing well, what else do we have to look at?
This, and I agree with what George says. It's we live in a very toxic world, unfortunately, with the EMF and these estrogens and stress, and we just haven't caught up, had time to accommodate to the new environment that we live in. We lived and grew up. Our ancestors had such a different environment than we do, and there's so much stress. We're working 24/7. constant light, phones in front of our faces, and stress, and our soils are depleted of nutrients. Food is devoid or made artificial, and it affects us. And as we're all seeing, I think men and women at a much, much younger age coming in with issues. And I agree. I definitely always more focus on the symptoms. I don't want to say I don't care, but the numbers are less important because there's a lot of variation. If they're a woman, for example, where a man is having symptoms, fixated on the number, but it's more about how they feel. Not just on symptoms, but there's a lot of genetic changes too. When they look at your genes, they call CAG repeats on your genetic score, right? One guy at level 400 can feel amazing, another guy at 400 feels like crap. That plays into it as well. So it's very individualized and it's more symptom-based than looking at the numbers. But that being said, as we said, we are seeing a crisis here where we see.
Know this. This is a medical subspecialty. It's not a surgical thing. So, and they agree with that, by the way. So you talk to the patient, you get the history, you look at the labs, and then you make a decision. What are you going to change? You start changing behaviors. You start working on, do they have low thyroid? Do they have depression? Then what does the heart look like in the kid? It's very complicated.
Every aspect of their life is in their training, their nutrition. They're doing everything perfectly, but they're still hypergonadal. And I think my hypothesis that's happening is we're now in the downstream effect of what's happening when these generations are getting lower testosterone, and then we're reproducing in an environment that's very, very heavily bombarded with xenoestrogens, particularly in utero when people are growing up. And we're seeing the same thing. I don't work with women, but it comes up all the time with women as well. Day 21 where their progesterone should be peaking, and it's undetectable. And they're going to their doctor, they're getting put on antidepressants, they're getting sent to counselors, not making that progress that they should be making. And I think that one thing that's very misleading and very confusing for a lot of younger guys is that what is now upper quartile of the reference range a decade ago was the bottom quartile. So I think it can be quite difficult when you're looking at these lab markers and going, okay, if this one's above range, like gamma GT, bilirubin, that may suggest that we have a problem that we need to investigate. But if the testosterone is out of range, then that actually might not mean the same thing. We're looking at the average of someone who's either sick, fat, depressed, or a combination of all three. And I think that can be quite difficult for these younger guys coming up.
So there was a paper that I cannot remember the name of the authors, but it came out in the 90s, and it said that stress, life stress on average is 44% more in the mid-90s than it was 30 years prior to that. So if we think about the mid-90s, most people got what in the mid-90s? Access to something we can't live without now? The internet. Okay, so we get the internet. So if you think about people between, say, the 1960s and 1990s, you're looking at like your self-judgment, where you are in the world. You're trying to put yourself on, that continuum of like, does my yard look as good as my neighbor? Do I have a fast enough car? Is my wife hot enough? You have those types of stressors. Now, if we go to the 90s to now, where you have social media, now you're comparing yourself to 8 billion people around the world. And we're promoting this culture now that boys can't be boys and that we shouldn't have testosterone and we must remove all young men's balls, right? And it's doing a disservice. Like, we're supposed to grow up as men in a controlled environment. Like, it's okay for a couple of young men to throw hands if that's what it comes to, and then talk it out. But we're getting to a pussification of our culture, which is making guys not develop the way they should. We develop through adversity, and we're trying to tell them that everything is sweet and awesome in the world and that they can't have that, which is something they 100% absolutely need, right? But a lot of the stuff that I talk about with my clients and our students is that how stress affects everything, how you have this streamline effect of how stress controls your epigenetics and how that creates a storm of catecholamines that then causes a lot of other things like metabolic resistance, catabolism, atrophy, all this, and reduction of testosterone. So I think it's not like we can talk about xenotoxins, xenoestrogens, we can talk about red dye number 40, we can talk about all these things, but we also have to think about the other input that people are getting in through their eyes and through their ears, and the toxic stuff they're getting on the news and in video games, not being active enough and not going out in nature and being with their family and doing fun, cool shit.
So that reminds me what you said about the
kind of feminization of men is I was at the Gay Pride in London, and there was someone who had a T-shirt on that said, "I survived testosterone poisoning," which I found quite offensive, really. So I mean, it's this kind of part of the culture that isn't helpful, as is. And the reason why we mention the ranges is because some practitioners, they are confined sometimes by guidelines, and these guidelines are written by some of these societies, Endocrine Society. Fortunately, in the UK, we have the Society of Sexual Medicine, and then also the ISSAM, International Society of Aging Males,